Welcome to Beyond the 90, episode 60. We've got two special guests with us. Welcome both. You all right, Alex?
Thanks for having me.
No problems. You all right, Zach? And we've got the usual guest, Ant, who's in the car as usual.
Yeah, it's basically my new home now, isn't it? Like every time I talk to you guys, I'm in my car.
And I've got Neil as usual.
Same old Neil. Nothing too impressive here.
Okay, so before we get started this week, got two special guests, as we just said. You're part of the new Twitter account that I've seen, North American Foxes. Do you want to give us a bit of background about you guys?
Yeah, sure. So we had a mini group of just fans that were over here in North America because the group kind of started because we were all awake at 8 or 9 o'clock our time, and everybody in the UK is asleep. So we're talking and nobody's responding. So a few of us got together and created this group. At first, it was just a group chat, and at that point, we were discussing being like, well, why don't we create a Twitter account called the North American Foxes, where we can unite a bunch of fans all across North America, and we can have conversations at times when everyone in the UK or in Europe is asleep. And one thing kind of led to another, and the account shot up quite quickly, and discussions all across the board and the group chats and everything. So it's been really cool to see.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because I noticed quite a few messages when I wake up from you guys, what you've been talking about. So it's quite good to see. You should talk to Anne. Anne's awake most hours of the day.
Yeah. Well, I work 6 till 4, so I'm always up in the morning chatting rubbish on Twitter.
Right, so let's get into it, guys. Transfer rumours. Obviously, the biggest one is Chilwell. Going to Chelsea, we think what we've seen so far is the deal is probably 65 million and 10 million on add-ons, depending on what Chelsea do next year. World record for a left-back. What do you guys think to it? And I'll start off with you, Alex.
So what I think about it, if it's 65 million pounds with add-ons possibly, you got to do it. Like, I know there's been a lot of hate on Twitter, especially about Chilwell, and he's a young left back, but I would love to keep him on the team. And I even make fun of it on the occasion on being like, oh, he wasn't at the game last time or whatnot, you name it. But part of me wishes that we keep him. But if someone offers 65 million plus add-ons, I don't think you can say no to that. And then you also have to look at the fact that is Chilwell, is his head and his heart in the right place? That's the other determining factor, because these rumors have been going on since early January about where he was going to end up. So
yeah, I think you're right, and we discussed on the podcast before about his head's not been in it since January. Maybe there was talk in the January transfer window of him going to Chelsea. Maybe his head got turned then, and his heart's not been in it since then. What do you think, Ant?
So for me, I think Alex hit the nail on the head, but if he doesn't want to be here, then the best thing to do is to sell him. And we've been, I would say, fairly critical of him this season because he hasn't played particularly well, but there is a very good player in there. But for 65 million, he's more than replaceable. So I think we need to sell him, but then the crucial part becomes in as long as we replace him properly. I don't want us to sell him for 65 million, then to bring in like Ryan Bertrand from Southampton.
I know there's been talk of Jamal Lewis, been linked, and a few others. So we'll get that when we talk about transfers in. I think Zach's joined us again. You right, Zach?
Yes, sir. Here I am. Sorry about that. My phone just completely crashed into heat, so I'm trying on desktop.
Okay, no, that's fine. So Chilwell going to Chelsea, what are your views on it?
I personally think with Chilwell, as kind of mentioned, that I feel like that his head just wasn't there.
I think we've lost Zach again. If you can join us again, Zach, that'd be great. So Neil, your views on it? Because I know that you're on, what channel are you on tonight discussing this?
Yeah, I'm going on somebody from Blues Fan TV, Carefree Lewis G on Twitter. So I'll be going on his show and I'll be recording something for Beyond the 90 as well that you might see as well. I gave him just kind of an update of what's gone on with the Chilwell situation. But I was kind of saying to him, long story short, we would be okay We're going to lose him eventually. He's probably going to be to Chelsea. So overall, 65 mil, it's an absolute brilliant deal we've managed to get for him, considering like Carl Walker was 50 mil and that was looked at a lot of money. So we've managed to rip Chelsea's hand off a little bit there. Overall, he just doesn't seem the same player that he was when the year before, or even since September. The ability to, I remember the Tottenham match where he was driving into the box from that left hand, cutting inside, dribbling with the ball. His crossing hasn't been the best at times. So for 65 mil, I think we've got a deal. The only issue I think, just a point that Ant was bringing up as well, is that we tried this with Maguire. We charged like a world record fee for a centre back, and then we went out to other Premier League clubs and went, can we have this player? And what did they all say? He's going to be 75 mil because we know you've got it straight up front. So, and we went, oh, we're not going to pay that. And luckily, Soyuncu has had an amazing season, which we'll probably get onto a bit later. But coming back to it, the other clubs aren't, they're going to go, right, well, you've got 65 mil. We're going to want 55 mil. And there's only a certain amount of time that trick can play off before we look like chumps or we have a player that we lose massively that's going to have a massive detriment to our team. So I've seen that before we're all crying out for a Mahrez ex-player now, where when Kante left, we thought Mendy was it. It wasn't. And we saw the hole that he left a little bit as well. Overall, we have been positive, but I just don't want it to be a thing where the left back goes, we bring in Luke Thomas, who I think is going to be the most likely to fit in there, because I don't think we're going to get anybody. So, yeah, I can't see us investing that much more in a left back, an out-and-out left back as of now. But 65 mil, you can't really complain too much, because I'm kind of like putting holes in what my thoughts are just of the transfer in general.
Okay. Some transfers in. Before I go to Ant, I'll just say that Morella's played for Rangers today because they haven't agreed a fee with Lille. So I'll go to Ant.
There's still a chance. I think Morella, he's one of those, I'd love to see him come to Leicester, but there's bigger priorities that we need in terms of replacing Chilwell, a centre-back and a left-back and a winger.
Okay, so of the rumours you've seen, who is coming?
Probably Jamal Lewis is the one that I think is most likely to replace Chilwell. I think I don't want to say that's almost a certain one, but looks very likely. They've set their price for him and it's at like 16, 17 million. So yeah. I can see a plan for that one. And then I'd like to say, I can't think of the guy's name, the Barcelona winger. Not happening, is it? The Trincao?
Or whatever.
That's not happening. And then maybe David Brooks.
Yeah, the Trincao one doesn't seem to be going anywhere. They've said no. We're still trying to get a price for him. But I read somewhere today that even if the Barcelona said, okay, then you've got a deal, would he come here? Because he's already said that he wants Champions League football. And I think us finishing fifth is going to cause us so many problems in this transfer market, if I'm honest. What do you think, Alex?
I think you're already seeing it. We're being linked to how many players in the span of the last 2-3 weeks, and Twitter is blowing up because everybody just wants to see a friggin' signing.
Yeah.
And, I think at the end of the day, I think finishing fifth is going to really hurt us. I think if we finished in a Champions League spot, I think the opportunity to get much better quality signings would be up there, where now I think we're going to be scraping by just to get a signing. And I don't know why, I just have this feeling it's going to be like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the fans are getting a bit restless. I don't think Leicester City help themselves because they keep giving us news every day that somebody signed for us 8 years ago. And played like 3 games. I don't think that helps the fans. And let's be honest, according to all the papers, Maddison signed his new deal before he went on holiday 4 weeks ago, and the club still haven't announced that. The club seems to be slow on everything. Even the kits are on every single website before it goes on our website. It's just shocking. And I think the fans are just griping at anything at the minute because we've not signed anyone.
I think when...
Sorry, Ant.
have we not announced is the wrong word? Have we released the away kit yet? Because I know we all know that it's the white one. But
No.
the club can be released.
No.
So maybe to be hopeful, but we release it with a new signing. Doubtful, but I'm going to keep keep faith.
Okay, so Madison signed a 4-year deal, so it'll be him holding up a 2024 kit then.
I will take that at this point.
Well, we'll see it. Wes Morgan signs a contract till he's 75 years old.
Nice. Zach, are you back with us?
I should be.
Okay, cool. So transfers in, anybody you want to see or you've seen any rumours that you thought was interesting?
Other than the ones you guys touched on, I would say
Think it's happened again.
It's keeping us in suspense. Okay, so transfers in, I've not really seen anything that's concrete at the minute. I've seen quite a few people saying, oh, we should get him, we should get them. So finance-wise, this week's been announced, we've got another bank loan. It's a 7th bank loan in 2 years that we've gone to this Austrian bank for. That to me, it is good business because the training ground and the ground complex, businesses will always get loans for them because the values of them are too high. And they're offsetting against the TV money because that's paid in instalments, so one outweighs the other. There's been a new loan for £54 million. No one knows what it's for. But then questions have started to be asked is, do we need to sell to buy? I think as a business, most businesses do need to sell to buy. It's the way it works. We're not like Man City, we're not like Chelsea, we can't just go out and spend. So I think the Chilwell money will start the ball rolling and cause that domino effect that once he goes, people will start moving. That's what I think anyway. Neil?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, I think the initially, you got to remember when the King Power Group signed, they wrote off £100 million in debt, which was really good to see when we first started. But the players that we're signing and the amounts that we're signing for are completely different level. Like we signed Wes Morgan, we signed a Kasper Schmeichel for £1 million. In today's money, that's kind of like, that's nothing. So now we're looking at a bigger level. We're looking at investing £1 million, 100 million in training ground. Don't know how much the stadium expansion will cost, but that'll cost a certain amount of money as well. So I think it's the right thing to do in order to have, in order to run the books the right way. I don't know too much about football finances, to be perfectly honest with you, but I know that all the bigger clubs kind of run themselves into debt because it's cheaper to pay off that, because they don't have to pay as much tax on the debt than they do if they were in profit. Then they'd paid more tax on the profit. So yeah, I'm not too good on the economics there, but yeah, I'm not too fussed about it because at the end of the day, we're selling players for good money. With the Chilwell situation we talked about earlier, with the situation with Maguire, we had the 80 mil up front. So all of these things are looking in the right direction, and the club is investing in the players so far. So I'm not too disappointed with all that's happened, but at the same time, I think this is just how football is nowadays, just with the whole loans. And as you were saying, we don't have the money like we did, like a Man City does, like a Chelsea does, where they can just kind of pump millions and millions into a club. I think that was the case when we were in the Championship, but now that we're in the Premier League and the big boys have really stepped up their game and come to the front, we just can't keep up. So I trust in the King Power Group to do what they do best and run the club the right way, which I think they're doing all right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think people are getting worried because we've not signed anyone, so it starts scaring them. I mean, the Chelsea situation, they've not been able to buy anyone for 2 years, yet their income has still been coming in, and they've got the Hazard money that they couldn't spend, and now they're just flexing the powers a bit more.
I mean, 65 for Chilwell, that's a hell of a flex. I mean, we'd take that flex any day.
I know. And looking at their forwards that they've bought in as well, there's just spent, haven't they? And there's probably a few more players coming, no doubt. So a few weeks ago, we had a conversation, me, Neil, and Ant, around season awards when Leicester City announced theirs. We didn't think much to them because there was only like 3 awards and it was kind of stonewallers. So going to hand over to Neil now. We went out with a few awards, so we're just going to discuss them. Over to you, Neil.
Cool. So yeah, we've got a few awards that we've been put out because just to kind of reset what James was saying, I thought normally the end awards are okay. The end of season awards, obviously this season with Corona, it's been a bit different. But I thought overall the awards that they put out were a bit naff with kind of Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes taking off pretty much everything at the moment. So I thought we'd go through. So just to keep you guys involved, this is what it was. We're looking at most improved player of the year, young footballer of the year, biggest achievement of the year, underrated player of the year, best assist of the year, best assister of the year, best team goal, best result of the season, worst touch of the season, goal of the season, memory of the season, and then to finish it off, player of the season as well. So we'll go through them one by one. So we'll start off with one of the ones that I think was probably one of the biggest awards, actually, was the most improved player of the year. So this is going to the player from the 2019 to 2020 season that has had the most impact for and how much they've improved them towards the end of the year. So just on that, I would like to hand it over to Alex. So who would you think would be your most improved player of the year?
I actually voted for this one, and I said Soyuncu, because nobody expected him to play the way that he played, because Maguire leaves and everyone's thinking, okay, who are you going to go out and get? And there was rumors speculating that we were going to go out and look for a center back, and it never happened. And then all of a sudden we slot in Soyuncu, and I think he far exceeded anybody's expectations, and I think he had a better season than Maguire did, hands down. So I got to give it to Soyuncu.
Yeah, just over to Ant. Do you have any other thoughts on that, or anybody that you would recommend? Because obviously Soyuncu is a really good example, but anybody else this season that's really improved?
I think it has to be Soyuncu. Like, the fact that he barely played last year, he didn't even feature in a lot of the Carabao Cup games. He was that far down the pecking order. To come in and then get him a team of the year for the Premier League as a centre-back, his rise has been outstanding. I wanted to mention as well Iheanacho as well, because we said at the start of this season, because I remember me and you talking, Neil, but it was sort of either a make or break season at the start of the year for him, and he's done really, really well, but I just think you can't look past Soyuncu.
Yeah, I totally agree. So mentioning, Alex was mentioning earlier that we put a tweet out so you can make sure to follow us on Beyond the 90 LCFC. And what the three players we had were Soyuncu, Iheanacho, and Harvey Barnes for just young players that have improved. And again, we agree with the votes, which was 64% was for Soyuncu. So I'd say, yeah, Soyuncu is our most improved player of the year. So just over to you quickly, James. Did you think he was going to do this well coming into this season? Because it just seemed like he'd taken off to the Premier League like he'd never left.
No, I don't think he did this well. I don't think he's most improved player because his first game he was good, and he's been good, and he's been good, and he's been good throughout the season. It's just been solid. So I don't think he's improved. For me, Nacho, last season he couldn't hit a barn door, let's be honest. And he wasn't getting his international team. And he seems to have spent the summer training, or last summer training, getting ready for it, and seems to have hit the ground running. I'd love to see him play a bit more. But on your point, Neil, yeah, Soyuncu, no one ever thought he was going to do this. Everyone was dreading the season starting because we didn't really have a centre-back to go with Johnny Evans, and he just took that role instantly. It didn't even take him a few games to get like that. He was just there, playing like that, and I think that's credit to the lad. As Anne said, he got into the team of the year, so what else can you say?
Agree. And I think one thing to mention as well, I think we'll get on to later on with Iheanacho as well, is that he has a better goal to minute ratio than Jamie Vardy. And bearing in mind, Jamie Vardy got the golden boot and was praised for it as well. So that's definitely something to look into. Moving on to the next award. So we've got Young Footballer of the Year. So this will be the award for somebody that's relatively young, because a lot of ours, this is a lot of people for our squad that is a young player, and we've gone for we're looking at a player that has come in and is kind of similar to what we're saying, like a really improved player, or has hit the ground and exceed the expectations almost as a young player. So I'd just like to hand over to you, Ant. Who do you think you would nominate as your Young Footballer of the Year?
I know the sort of the majority of the votes and stuff are going to go towards Harvey Barnes and stuff because he's loved by all our fans. But I think people still forget how young Maddison is and sort of how influential and stuff he's been on a lot of our performances before he's got injured. So if we're going by sort of young player of the year by the Premier League rules that you can be 24, I would say James Maddison because he's been absolutely brilliant. I know he hasn't got that many assists and stuff because he's played a bit deeper, but anyone who watches Leicester will realise how important and how crucial he is to our team.
Sounds good. Sounds good. James, over to you. What do you think of who would you nominate for your Young Footballer of the Year?
I think Maddison's a good shout. For me, James Justin came from Luton, didn't really play much, was using the cup games. But then all of a sudden, Ricky gets injured and all of a sudden he's thrown into that position. And for me, he's kind of done what he needed to do. Yes, he's made mistakes, he's young, but for me, he's improved. And for me, he is the Young Player of the Year because he's done so well in such a small space of time, whereas Maddison was already established in the first team.
Yeah, I agree there that a lot of these players that we were looking at for Young Footballer of the Year are players that would kind of hit the ground this season. So I'd agree Maddison is a good example of it. And it's always going to be hard because we've got so many young players, and that's kind of our team at the moment, is this young up-and-coming talent that's going to eventually in a few years rise to the top and play for their countries kind of thing. But I agree with James. Bearing in mind we've got the three nominations for us. We had Kelechi Iheanacho, Luke Thomas and James Justin. And so Twitter and I agree as well. James Justin got 56% of the votes. Luke Thomas got 14 and Kelechi Iheanacho got 30%. So it was tight, but I think James Justin as for the things that you mentioned already, coming in to replace Ricardo, which is looking at probably one of the players of the season in that position. And if he would have stayed fit, would have been probably up there as the best, challenging Trent Alexander-Arnold as that right back position as one of the best in the league and possibly the world. So to slip into that position at 19, 20 years old, to then come through and take on players such as Greenwood and Martial and the other Man United players. I remember when he was playing in the back three, he was outstanding and he was playing in all sorts of games in a right wing position, in a right back position. And he just looked fantastic. So I'd agree as well. I'd give that award for the Young Footballer of the Year to James Justin. So moving on to the next award. So this might be a surprise to everybody. It will be the biggest achievement of the year. So this is obviously, we've had a few awards this year. We've reached the semi-finals in the EFL Cup. We've reached the FA Cup quarter-finals as well. We were shouting out to as well. But just over to you, Alex. What would you say Leicester City's biggest achievement of the year was?
Well, I'm going to go with Jamie Vardy winning the Golden Boot because he's 33 years old. He's the oldest ever to win the Golden Boot, and not a lot of people expected him to win. And especially in the last couple of weeks, everyone expected, anyone to catch up to him at this point. And he maintained it, was able to score his 100th Premier League goal at the same time. And I think that's there's a lot of different things that you can actually look at to say that this is the biggest accomplishment. But I think on a whole, having Jamie Vardy win the Golden Boot for at the age of 33 is the biggest achievement for this season.
Yes, that's definitely a good one. I think coming into this season, we knew he was challenging and we knew he was underrated. But if anybody was going to come in and think he was going to get the Golden Boot with people like Aguero, Aubameyang this year, it's definitely one of them. And apart from the Jamie Vardy Golden Boot, is there any other things that you'd say was the achievement of the year?
I think we've got it as another nomination a bit later, but the 9-0 against Southampton, to go away to the Premier League team and batter them 9-0. I don't care how poor of a team they were at the time, to go and do that to another Premier League team, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's actually one of the nominations as well. So just on that as well, James, any other ones that you can think of that for this year would be you would deem a success?
I think start of the season, if you'd have said fifth in Europa, most fans would have bit your hand off. I think, however, we were third, 14 points clear. So getting into the Europa is not really a success anymore, although it would have been at the start of the season. So for me, I think I'm with Alex, it's the Jamie Vardy. Yes, he has bad games. Yes, he goes lost in some games. But you know that he's always there and will always come up with the goods now and again. And to win that Golden Boot, I mean, everyone was surprised when we won the league and he didn't win the Golden Boot. But for a team that's basically bottled third position and finished fifth, them to still win that Golden Boot is a huge achievement. So I think that's it for me.
I totally agree. So what we had for the biggest achievement of the year, we had just the three things that were mentioned. So Jamie Vardy with Golden Boot, Europa League qualification, and Southampton away, which we'll definitely get onto in a bit as well. So overall, when we put the Twitter poll out, there was 38% of people voted for Jamie Vardy Golden Boot. 30% of people voted for Europa League qualification and 32% voted for Southampton away. So I'd agree, Jamie Vardy, I think we'd all agree that Jamie Vardy Golden Boot was definitely one of the achievements. It's something we didn't think that would happen this year because of things that I've mentioned. With bearing in mind, we've got some world-class players in the Premier League. Aubameyang nearly catching him at the end. Danny Ings needs a special mention as well because what a season he's had with how clinical he's been for Southampton. And Aubameyang and all sorts of other players that are Salah and Mane as well. So there's definitely, for Jamie Vardy to get it is a truly great achievement, which I think so. Yeah, for our award for biggest achievement of the year, we'd give it to Jamie Vardy. On to the underrated player of the year. So obviously we watch Leicester game in, game out. We see what they're like. This can be given to a player that's either come off the bench, or we come off the bench and perform very well. People didn't really know about at the beginning of the season, but learn to go at the end of the season. They can learn to appreciate, or a player that even Leicester fans don't really appreciate that much, and give a bit of stick to who they potentially shouldn't. So, just from like an outsider's perspective, Alex, who would you believe is your underrated player of the year this season?
I'd have to say Nacho, because I see the amount of like crap he takes on Twitter, and I'll admit I'm also one of them on the occasion, but he's improved in huge strides this season, and the amount of time that he's actually been given to play and the opportunities that he's had. I think he's extremely underrated, and especially right now with all the talk about him possibly being sold is. Now that's bringing up a whole new discussion, because all of a sudden all these fans that are like, oh, he's overrated, oh, he's terrible, are like, well, if you sell Nacho, we riot. And so all of a sudden fans are doing this, this 180 and being like, don't sell him. He had an incredible season. Yeah, he needs to improve here and there on certain things, but overall I think he had a great season, and I think he's the most underrated player on the team.
Totally agree. I think that's a really good shout. So I'm going to hand over to James for this one for potentially his favourite player that I think he wants to mention that got a high percentage of the vote as well. So who do you think is your underrated player of the year?
I'm clearly going to go for Pratt because we all know that. But surely Slimani should be in there. 9 goals, 8 assists. On fire. Obviously,
someone else. This is LCFC Awards. What are you doing, mate?
He's still a Leicester City player. Yeah, Pratt. He always comes off the bench. He never seems to moan either. He gets subbed, sometimes ridiculous subs as the fans see it. But he just puts his head down and does what he does. He comes on, it's killer passes, and he seems to go under the radar. And I think the next few years he'll be that main midfielder in there helping Maddison, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if there's something that happens to Maddison or something that happens to Tielemans, that he can come in and replace that. And before this season, we didn't really have that person that could really do that. So I think overall, it's a great suggestion. Just over to you, Ant. Who would you think is the two that I mentioned, Iheanacho and Pratt so far? Would you suggest anybody else that's been a bit under the radar from maybe a Leicester fan's perspective or like a Premier League perspective?
I can already hear James shouting at me, but I'm going to say Jose Perez. I think he's for a player who's come in, he's taken absolute pelters from our fans.
That's because he's made a paper.
He's done all right. He's played on the right wing, which isn't his preferred position, and he's still put up some decent numbers. And sort of the link up he had with Ricardo on that right hand side, I think, went very much under the radar, and we didn't realise how good it was until sort of neither of them were there. And then when he did play down the middle, which is his natural position that he played at Newcastle and has played most of his career, I think he looked absolutely brilliant and stuff. So he's definitely another option.
Just on the Perez thing, obviously he played where he played due to injuries. I think with a fully fit squad and a right winger, he wouldn't get in that team.
Squad depth then, isn't he? He offers more squad depth.
Just saying.
Like
Wouldn't you say the same thing about Pratt, though?
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah.
It's underrated, not particularly the best footballer, but yeah, we did it. We stuck the poll out onto Twitter to see what people put, and so the three we have was Iheanacho, Pratt, and James Justin. So James Justin got 16% of the votes, Pratt got 39, and Iheanacho got 45. So we'd say for us, we'd agree, and Iheanacho would get the Underrated Player of the Year award. Now on to the Best Assisted award. There's been a lot of goals this season for what's happened to Leicester City, and there was quite a few assists to choose from, to be honest. So this is going to be open to, I'll give it to James first. Is there any assist that you think that'll stand out in your memory as that was quite an assist that led to a goal? Because obviously for most of these, you can imagine Jamie Vardy's getting on the end of them.
The Maddison assist, I think it was Sheffield United away. Killer pass, goal. And it was an assist that reminded me of when we won the league. They were the kind of assists that Danny Drinkwater was doing to Jamie Vardy. And I think it was good to see that kind of action again. I don't think we've seen it enough times, to be honest. But yeah, that one gets my vote.
That sounds good. It's one we've got on our list. And over to you. Which one do you think is the best assist of the year?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with James here. I think we won the ball up high up the pitch. I think it was Perez won the ball, and then Maddison with like the technique to play that on the outside of his foot was just absolutely brilliant. And then I think Vardy's celebration just caps that off, doesn't it, in front of the Sheffield Cop with cup in his ears. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it's just the technique on it though. It was just incredible.
Yeah, just over to you, Alex, again. So who would you think is your the best assist that you've seen this year?
I'd have to agree. I'm in full agreement with it. I don't know why. I think the pass from Maddison just shows how experienced he really is and what his potential really shows. And I think that's the biggest thing that I saw from that. Not only was it a great pass, but I think a lot of people talk about Maddison, and they show his stat line, but I think his potential far exceeds what his stat line has showed this year. And that pass right there shows it.
I agree. I think so. We put this out on Twitter. I think the three that we managed to come up with was obviously the James Maddison one that all four of us have mentioned. Ben Chilwell at home to Jamie Vardy when he looped for Vardy, looped it over the top, and Jamie Vardy put that goal, looped it over the keeper. And then we put Barnes in as well for the pass he did for Perez against Southampton for the third goal, where he chips it over. Again, it's a poor Southampton team, but I think that was personally brilliant. So we've got, just to a reverse running order, Ben Chilwell goes in with 21% of the votes we put out. Harvey Barnes gets 25, and agreeing with us as usual, Twitter has gone with 54%. James Maddison against Sheffield away. That is a great goal. I recommend everybody go and watch that on YouTube. The highlights are out now. So we would agree there. James Maddison wins it for the best award, best assist of the season. Moving on to best assister. So we're looking at a player that's gone above and beyond, or has provided assists to a team at a critical time. That's provided a great deal of assists from great locations as well. And so this is a bit of a tricky award because there's so many players to choose from. Because again, we were saying we've scored a lot of goals. So I see that Alex is scratching his chin. So I'll hand over to Ant straight away. Who do you think your best assister of the year is?
It's a hard one, isn't it? I'm going to go for Harvey Barnes because some of the assists he's got this year, like Man City away, have been like very good. I know he went on to lose that game, but sort of the ball to Vardy on the break and stuff was absolutely brilliant. And then against Crystal Palace as well, I know he could have easily shot and scored, but to sort of give Vardy an open goal to get his 100th goal, I think I've got to give it to Harvey Barnes.
Harvey Barnes was one of the choice that we've got on the list as well. And just overall, there's been quite a few players with quite a few assists this season. So Harvey Barnes, just reading it off now, Harvey Barnes has 7 goals and 9 assists for the entire season. I think this was for the season just going off the PPC. So yeah, over to you, Alex. Apart from Harvey Barnes, is there anybody else that you would say is for the best assister of the year?
That's hard. That's hard because I was thinking Harvey Barnes on that one. But like I said, there's so many options you can choose from. So I'm gonna stick with Harvey Barnes, but I think the choices really are endless, and I can't wrap my head around who to decide at that point if I take Barnes out of the equation. So
yeah, Harvey Barnes for us, it has the most assists with 9. Just hand over to you, James. Do you think that there is another person that you'd recommend for assister of the year apart from Harvey Barnes?
I think Harvey Barnes, although we've said before his decision making is not the best, if he could sort that out, he'd be one of the best winners in the league.
Yeah, he had lots of opportunities to put shots away, and his shot making isn't the best. But I think we're all in agreement. Harvey Barnes is the best assister of the year. Just another couple of nominations that we've got. Tillemans, who has 5 goals and 8 assists, and then Ant's favourite, Ayoze Perez, who has 8 goals and 5 assists as well. And let's not forget, Jamie Vardy has got 7 assists this season. So that's still a very, very high number for a person.
But weren't Perez's assists or shots?
His assists.
He's missed by miles.
Look, it was both very positive. It's the end of season awards.
Oh, we're back to back for lads, not get on my backs.
Exactly. James, you should know better. How dare you? But we're going on to the next award, which is the best team goal, which is an award that has gone to not necessarily the best finish, not necessarily the best overall, but just for the best play from a possession point of view. Leicester City have changed their way of playing since 2016, where we play on the counter-attack, and the best team goal to kind of go from one player to another. And we're doing not just Premier League, we're counting FA Cup in this as well. So I just hand over to you, James. What is your best team goal of the year?
I think it was Vardy, Palace away, where he did the Eagle celebration. I think that's the one for me. Yes, it involved most of the team. Passes galore, and that's the kind of Leicester that we like to see. So for me, it's got to be him and his Eagle celebration.
And I think there was a really good build-up of play, and also Damari Gray looked absolutely fantastic for that goal. The way he dummied it, then he ran round, played the pass, and then the shot into goal was, I think, fantastic. So that's one of them on our list as well. Just over to you. And what is your best team goal of the year?
There's 2 that I had in mind. So one was the Palace one that James has just mentioned, and as well Arsenal at home, because at the time it was a really tight game, and I think it was Vardy that finished it off as well. But sort of how well worked it was. Damari Gray again getting involved down sort of the right hand side, playing it back to Tillemans, and it was just because of how well that goal was worked, but in how big a game it was as well. It was just absolutely incredible. And then Vardy does what he always does against Arsenal and scores.
Yeah, and I remember for that goal as well, that indeed he hit the post maybe 10 minutes before. We just couldn't find a way through, but it was coming, and just that release as soon as that goal went in, that when Jamie Vardy scored that, and the build-up of play from another player, from Damari Gray to Yuri Tillemans, back to Maddison with a lovely back heel pass from Harvey Barnes as well, was brilliant. Is there any other, Alex, that you can think of that would consider your best team goal of the year?
I think the 2 that I don't think I can at this point. Like I said, I'm going through the archives and I can think of many, but I can't really.
So this is the one we didn't put out on Twitter.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that I was thinking of as well was the Iheanacho goal against Brentford during the FA Cup, where Pratt spills a fantastic ball over to the right wing. James Justin, one of his first games for Leicester City, then crosses it over, and Nacho just slots it into the back of the net within, I think, the first 10 minutes or so. So that one, the Jamie Vardy 2-0 against Palace away, and the Jamie Vardy against Arsenal at home is our 3. So obviously we seem to be split a little bit, but would you guys agree? So which one do you think, I'll hand over to you, James, will be the better out of them 3 goals? Which one would you pick?
On the whole, probably the Arsenal goal. Like Anne said, we were getting pegged back, and then we took we took control of the game, and that goal was just immense. So although I said the Palace goal at the start, I think that Arsenal goal was probably the best one.
I agree. I think everybody's in agreement as well with the Arsenal goal, even though the Crystal Palace one was a very, very tight one. I think that as well, the Arsenal goal was fantastic. So just to recap, it is the Jamie Vardy goal against Arsenal at home. I think, was that Unai Emery's last match in charge? Think so. Where for that first goal, and that just lifted the roof off the King Power. So that was fantastic. So that's the best team goal. Moving on to the best result of the season. Now, I'll hand over to you, Alex, because I think there's only one winner for this, but feel free to go ahead and explain why you think this is the best goal of the year. I'm not the best result of the season, because I'll just leave this one to you.
Well, how do I put it? Bayern Munich can beat Barcelona 8-2, but we can beat Southampton 9-0. So that's the game I'm going with. So easily the best. I don't think I sat down the entire game. And
what was your memories of the game? What was your abiding memories of that? Because I remember Perez getting a hat trick, Vardy got a hat trick towards the end. Is there any moment that you thought, this is getting stupid now, especially with the amount of goals we scored in the first half?
I think Perez getting the hat trick, I thought, okay, just stop. You've killed them already. Kind of like that meme that comes up. But then I had this, I was thinking, I'm like, man, this team can actually go further than we expect them to go. So now that I think about it, it's really nice to actually think about when I had hope, when, you thought that they were actually going to do something really incredible, because I thought, I think we could challenge for top 3 at this point, like hands down, no questions asked. Like, this team is incredible. So it was nice to see while it lasted. It was really nice, and now that I think about the game, it brings back great memories. And me screaming at the top of my lungs and not sitting down on the couch or anything. I was wired.
That sounds really good. James, have you got any other abiding memories of that match, or any other results that you'd like to include in that?
Probably Ant during our podcast using video, because that's our best result this season. It took us weeks and weeks to get that. Southampton game easily. After lockdown, I think everyone was hoping to see something like that, the kind of game that we played that game, but never materialised. But that game, yeah, for me, I think as soon as the sending off happened, they just tore them to pieces. And I think that's the killer instinct that wins you titles. You don't just go there and win and say that's enough. Man City go to teams all the time and tear them to pieces. And that demoralises players. So well done, lads.
Yeah, brilliant thing. Over to you, Ant. Any other thoughts?
I think it's got to be the 9-0 because of how big it was. But a game I thought it was really, really good, and it sort of epitomised how good we were at the start of the season, was Everton at home, where we kept going to the 90th minute, and that's where Iheanacho scored. I thought that sort of just epitomised us for the start of the season. But we played well that game, and we just couldn't break through, but we just kept going. And the scenes at the end of the King Power were just incredible.
Hold that thought, because we've got that coming up in the moment of the season as one of ours, just to look ahead a little bit. But so obviously, as you can imagine, the Leicester 9-0 was a massive one. We put it on Twitter. 91% of people agreed that this was the result of the season, which makes sense. But I think a couple of others to mention as well was Leicester 4, Aston Villa 0. After they knocked us out of the EFL Cup, they came to our ground. Pepe Reina had absolute awful game, and we managed to put 4 past them, which was the right mentality. I think that was just before we broke up for Corona as well. And the other one would be, for me, the Leicester 5, Newcastle 0, where they played at home. We lost James Maddison, and we weren't sure if the team's going to turn up. And Newcastle, I think, went down to 10 men as well, and they had an awful tackle on Dennis Pratt, which left them down to 10 men, and we just decided to wipe the floor with them and get 5 goals. But again, there's no competition, in my opinion, and with our opinion, I think we'd agree the best result of the season would be Leicester 9, Southampton 0. Moving on to one of the pessimistic awards, but worst touch of the season. So especially coming to the 3 nominations that I've got, just as a spoiler, are all in the last couple of a few games, because we were just woeful when we're trying to secure Champions League football, and we didn't get it. So over to you, James. What do you think your worst touch? Who and what game do you think is the worst touch of the season?
Last game of the season, Schmeichel, what the hell were you doing? That's all I'll say.
For the 2-0 against Man United. Any further explanation on that, or do you just want to hang your head in shame and leave the call?
As a goalkeeper, put your foot through the ball. If in doubt, put your foot through the ball and it's as high as you can, up to the halfway line, and they're not going to score. Don't try and dribble it out of their area so they can tackle you and then slot it into an empty net.
I agree. That is one of our worst touches of the season. And over to you. What do you think is your worst touch of the season?
Well, I'm not sure if he touched the ball or not, but Wes attempting a bicycle kick against Spurs. I'm not sure if he actually touched it or not, but it's loud for players.
I don't think he did. I think for me, that moment, the best part of that moment was 5 seconds afterwards seeing Iheanacho in the stand mouthing something around. How has he done that, I'll say.
It's like any other player you want there, apart from Wes.
To be fair, he nearly had one of the best goals of the season, to put it on a spin on it, when he I think it was against West Ham. We went away before another manager we managed to get sacked. I can't remember his name, Pellegrini, where Wes Morgan went over his head and nearly scored that goal. That towards the end of the goal. That was fantastic. But just over to you, Alex. Is there any other touches that you remember going, oh, what are you doing? Why have you done that? And you've just kind of, that's awful.
I have to say, I think it was the final game of the season, Chowdhury, when he just kind of, it looked like, I felt like I was watching myself play FIFA 20 and my controller disconnected. Because all of a sudden he just totally forgot what to do. And at that point I was like, and this is the end of it. And I'm pretty sure that was the same play that Evans and Morgan decided to duo tackle and cause the penalty. And well, we all know what happened. So
that's a good one. I think that was one that I was thinking about putting in, but there's one result that we've talked about earlier as well that I think is worse. There's 2 other ones that we've got. So both other worst touches of the season came from the Bournemouth game. So I'll try. If everybody wants to cover their ears for a bit, I'll just quickly go through this so we don't cause too much pain. Schmeichel, when he smacks it in the back of Ndidi, when Ndidi had no idea, again, to what James is saying, put your foot through it, get it out, kick it into their half, just whatever, get it away from the goal. And the other one was the Fuchs touch, where I think he gets the ball, tries to play it back, has a really good assist to Dominic Solanke, who then slots in the back of the net for 2-1. And that's where you saw, I think 2-1 or 4-1. That's where you saw, I think, Soyuncu get sent off as well. So just generally, I've got them 2, but which one do you think out of them 3, James, would be your worst touch of the season?
Probably the Schmeichel one against Bournemouth. Bournemouth is probably the worst game I've seen in the last 10 years for supporting them. Supported them all my life, but that was probably one of the worst games. I mean, they were dead and buried. They were going to go to Man City in the next game. If we'd have won that game, they'd have been down. And we just did not turn up at all. I don't know. God knows what was said at half time.
Iheanacho off. That's exactly what was said at half time. But over to you. And which one would you think out of them 3 would be your worst touch of the season? Considering Wes Morgan didn't touch the ball for the Tottenham one, but it was a good mention.
I think that it's got to be the Schmeichel one, not just because of how bad it was, but it was because of sort of the implications of it. And it was really the start of the downfall of that game against Bournemouth and stuff, which I saw, well, not the best stat today, but we're the only team, I think, in the top 8 to lose points to every team in the relegation zone this year.
That's not good, and especially a lot of them with losses as well, which is not great. But yeah, a lot of them was after the end of the season as well. So over to you, Alex. Do you agree that would be the worst touch of the season?
I'd have to say, yeah. It just seems like such a like a normal play, and in the end of it, it just turned into just imploded on itself, and it seemed like their season imploded right during that game. So yeah, I'd have to say that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I think, yeah, I'd agree as well. So we'd give it to Schmeichel for the 1-1 Bournemouth for the worst touch of the season. Now on to goal of the season. So this one has quite a few contenders, as you can imagine, as well. There's been all sorts of goals. There's been quite a few goals considering the way that we've changed our play. And it was a tight vote, I can say, from the three that I've got down that we asked Twitter about. So over to you, Anne. What do you think your goal of the season is?
We've scored a lot of goals this year compared to usual, so it makes it a lot harder. And there's been a lot of good ones as well. So there's two that come to mind straight away, which is Barnes against Sheffield United with that volley, and Maddison at home against Spurs. But I think if I'm going to have to pick one, I'm going to go for that Maddison goal, just because of sort of he picked the ball up and just drove and absolutely levered it into the back of the net.
I can say that neither of them we actually had for our goal of the season as our three nominations, but they're both very good ones. We'll get onto the Maddison goal for another one of the categories. But just over to you, James. Is there any other goal of the seasons that you'd say that was like goal of the season for Leicester City?
Probably Chilwell against Watford. Last few minutes, he's been whipping balls in all game. He gets the ball, he tries to whip it in, it's a divot, and it goes into the top corner. So you don't get better than that. But joking aside, the way he hit it, no goalkeeper in the world would have saved it or got near it. Technique was there, everything was there. It's one of them shots, one of them 1 in a million shots you probably never do again. But for me, when it was scored in that game, was a huge boost for the club. Because again, another game where we looked tired and dead and buried, and we just came out of it.
And yeah, and if they're watching that match alone, Chelsea would have thought 65 mil will pay that right up front. So just on another one, it's over to you, Alex. Is there any other memory or game that you think was goal of the season?
I got to give it to Barnes. I can't remember the game. Can't remember who they played for some reason, but I would have to say the Barnes goal, just because
Sheffield United at home.
Yeah, because just the way he made contact with it, and just I don't think any goaltender could save that the way that went in. And
this was one of the most contested goals that I think that I've seen. Another one that neither of them are on our list because we didn't want to essentially copy the same ones that Leicester City did. But that would be definitely one for me. Another one would be that I've not got on the list would be James Maddison against Sheffield against Newcastle United away on New Year's Day when they gave the ball away from a City position, I think for 2-0, and James Maddison sends an absolute screamer into the top right-hand corner, which again, as you were saying, nobody's going to get close to. So for the three that we decided to put out on Twitter, because we tried to do 3 for each award, we had Hamza Chowdhury against Newcastle, where he hits the top of the bar and for the, I think, that 88th minute goal. Ben Chilwell against Watford, which is what James was saying. And another one that we were mentioning slightly earlier was the Jamie Vardy lob against Bournemouth, where Ben Chilwell sends it along the wing, and then Jamie Vardy just chips it straight over the keeper, has no chance, and it lands in the back of the net, sending the crowd at home into hysterics. So just out of them 3, I'll hand over to you, Alex. Which one do you think that Twitter, or which one do you think you would vote as your goal of the season?
I would say Chilwell versus Watford, because they look dead and buried, just kind of like James said. And I think that kind of just gave him a little bit more energy to finish off the game. And
nice one.
It was an incredible goal.
Yeah, it really was. And over to you. Out of them 3, which one would you vote as the goal of the season?
The strike itself from Chilwell was brilliant, but I think with Chowdhury, I love the fact that he was getting booed, he was getting stick from Newcastle fans every touch of a ball because of obviously his tackle on Matt Ritchie in the cup earlier on in the year, and then just go and stick that in the top corner and basically empty St James's Park by himself. I think that was just it was just brilliant. I loved sort of everything around that, just the abuse, not the abuse that he was taking, but just the way that he just silenced them.
And yeah, that's the reason why it was a hell of a strike as well. The way he put it in, a small pass from Ndidi and just laced it into the top of the net. Apart from that, is there any other them three, James? Is there any other that you'd give goal of the season to?
No, I don't think so. Who won the Leicester City one?
So for I think Harvey Barnes for the Sheffield. I think from
Okay.
what Alex was saying as well, but
Yeah.
we didn't want to copy them exactly. But
No, I think for me it's still the Chilwell one. As Ant said, the Chowdhury one was unbelievable. Great touchman did it. Another one that you hit, probably wouldn't do it again. So I think between them two, I'd still go with Chilwell.
yeah, I think that's a really good one. So from the three goals that were given, that we'll go them in alphabetical order. And again, it was a very close one compared to some of the other results that we had. So with 29% of the vote, we've got Newcastle away, the Hamza Chowdhury goal. 32% was Watford, the Ben Chilwell Watford one that James was talking about. And with 39% of the result was Jamie Vardy against Bournemouth at home. So as you can see that Jamie Vardy seems to have won that, and it's one of the great goals. I don't believe it's probably one of the goals of the season, in my opinion. I think from what you guys mentioned as well, the Harvey Barnes one definitely wants a mention as well. James Maddison one definitely has a mention as well. But I'd say overall, probably, and I'd agree that the Ben Chilwell against Watford would probably be my goal of the season. Moving on to memory of the season. So there's been quite a few memories this season, and we talk about positive memories here before everybody talks about the Bournemouth 4-1, because we after this season, after this podcast, we don't mention that match ever again. So is there any points? I think you were going to mention about it earlier, and we've got one of them is the Kelechi Iheanacho Everton at home 90+4 goal. Do you want to expand on that a bit further and why you think that's the memory of the season?
It was absolutely brilliant. He came on and this was the first game we really sort of started to see the transformation in Kelechi, and he got the assist for Vardy earlier on in the game, and it was the whole sort of suspense with the VAR. I think a lot of us thought it was going to get ruled out and stuff, and then just sort of seeing how the team celebrated together on the sideline, and just sort of how the absolute scenes in the stands as well. It was just, I think everything about that was brilliant, and that was when everyone was so behind the team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember being in the ground for that one, and everybody went crazy. Everybody was completely checking trying to get their video up on their phone, trying to find out beforehand, because VAR, which again is another chat for another day, it comes out on the telly before it comes out in the ground. So we were trying, and then you'd hear a few roars that would go around the ground, and then eventually it was announced goal, and the celebrations are something to behold. So if you've not seen that, I'd recommend you research that and have a look at the post reaction of the whole team jumping on Brendan Rodgers as well, and Kelechi Iheanacho. James, is there any memory of the season that you have that stands out as the best?
I think the Iheanacho one was amazing. Obviously, the Southampton 9-0 was probably my biggest one. Not seen us play like that for 90 minutes in a long time. I think bad memories. I think COVID's destroyed football as we know it. Here in Leicester, it's been awful to see. I don't think the fans have responded. I don't think the players have responded to it very well either. And it was just awful for me to watch every single game, because they were just in like training matches that we weren't bothered about. I don't know what you thought, Alex. Obviously, you get to see the games all the time on the TV. I don't know what you thought the comparison was to a normal game to when COVID hit.
Definitely a different environment entirely, because I think the one thing that I really love about football matches compared to any other sport is how much the crowd and the fans affect the game, and how the momentum of the game, how the game, moves forward. Because being here in North America, I'm a huge hockey fan. I watch American football from time to time, and I watch baseball, and baseball doesn't have a lot of fans in the stands most times. American football, it's just such a stop and go sport. As a Canadian, hockey is huge with crowds, and we're seeing it right now with the playoffs in the NHL. There's no fans, and the games are boring, and the atmosphere seems dead. And I'm seeing the same exact thing with football. And it definitely, I think, takes a toll not only on the fans, but I think it also takes a huge toll on the players, because at the end of the day, they're kicking the ball around trying to score, but I think the fans really motivate them.
I think that's a good point. It's a nice perspective, though, because obviously it's our national sport here in the UK and kind of over Europe as well. So we only hear that. We don't really hear that much about hockey and other sports as much. But yeah, appreciate that. I'll get back to the memory of the season as well. So just on that, and is there any other moment? Well, you mentioned earlier. Sorry, Alex. That any other memory of the season that you'd say was like that? That was a moment there that was like. That really caught your attention. So far we've got the Southampton 9-0 and the Kelechi Iheanacho at home 90+4 goal.
I think for me, it was Jamie Vardy getting his 100th Premier League goal. It seemed like it was talked about for weeks. He was sitting at 99 goals. Everyone was like, well, is this the game? Is this the game? He had many opportunities to actually score, and he seemed to just whiff every single time. His frustration was clearly shown on his face. And, when he did get his 100th goal, it wasn't the prettiest goal. It wasn't the nicest goal. It went in, but you could see like the relief on his face. And he's like, I did it. And, I think the biggest thing for that is, when we first signed Vardy, back in the day when we signed him for £1 million and everyone's like, really? £1 million? This guy's going to be a wash, and then you see him now as, 100 Premier League goal scorer. I think that is a huge accomplishment. And, the goal might not have been the nicest thing, but seeing that accomplishment, it's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely a big moment, especially for this season. We'll look back on as one of our greatest strikes and one of the biggest achievements of it as well. I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot about that one a little bit when we came to it. The last one I've got for the momentum and the shift of momentum, kind of the memory of the season had quite a few of them. So one we mentioned before was the first goal against Arsenal for the way that swung. Another one was the Maddison goal against Tottenham when we played at home. For that, we were going right against the field of play. Tottenham had just had a goal marked off for offside, whether it was or not, and James Maddison slid it in front. They slid in a goal quite well in front of the Gazaniga, and that would be one that I'd put in as well. So I just go through from them three. Which one would you say, James, would be your memory of the season?
I think the Iheanacho goal, as Ant said, it went to VAR. Everyone thought it was going disallowed, and it's just the joy on all the players' faces to see him get that goal. So for me, that memory will stay with me for a long time. The kind of brotherhood mentality that we had when we won the league seemed to be back that day.
And I think the scenes that we thought VAR was going against us, and the fact that it didn't at that moment in time, and it was the last touch of the game pretty much. But yeah, over to you, Anne. For them three, which one do you think would be your memory of the season?
I'm so torn in between the Spurs one and the Everton one, but because with the Spurs one, I remember because they were singing earlier on in the game, because I don't know if you remember, Ndidi had the goal ruled out, and they're singing about like VAR being one of their own and all of that. And it's like, it was the most Tottenham thing, like going 2-0 up to lose 2-1, which was just brilliant. But I don't know. I'm going to go with the Iheanacho one, but they're both just absolutely brilliant.
I'd agree. What about you, Alex? What would you think your memory of the season of obviously from a different perspective? I know you don't manage to get too many games, but what would be your memory of the season overall?
I have to say the Nacho versus Everton, because I even remember standing up, and because I always watch the games on TV, so I get to watch the replay right as it happens. And I just remember being like, that's a goal, that's a goal, that's a goal. And, everybody in the crowd's waiting for it, but I already know it's a goal, and then now you're just hoping that VAR actually agrees with you at the end of the day, because, I think that's the biggest thing. And so I think that's the biggest memory for me when it comes to that, because just seeing the celebration, it just wasn't like we won. It was like the entire team erupted and the entire stadium erupted.
Yeah, I agree. From the stadium perspective, just to let you know, obviously you see it from you got the result before us. There was a few cheers around the ground from where we were sitting. I got an elbow in the ribs. I got a kiss on the face within 5 seconds. I had somebody fall over in front of me, but everybody was just getting absolutely carried away. It was really, really good to see. So I'd agree. The best moment of the season, we would give it to Kelechi Iheanacho versus Everton for the 90+4 goal. Moving on to the Player of the Season award. So this is obviously, there's lots of contenders. We've had some pretty poor performances, but we've had some players that have really stepped up and performed outstandingly. So just for you, Alex, who would you say would be your nomination or your Player of the Year? Because it's quite a hard award because there's so many to choose from this season.
I'm gonna kind of go completely off book here, and I'm going to give it to James Justin, because I don't think nobody expected him to play the way he played off the bench when Ricardo got injured. You know, no one, like, how do you replace Ricardo? You know, and he comes on, and I think he surprised everyone, and he maintained not only to play that position, but show that he could play multiple positions during his time that he took over on the first team. So I'm going to give it to James Justin on this one.
Yes, that's a really, really good one for Player of the Year, actually, as well. It's not one that we've got on the 3, but I'll hand over to you, and there's going to be quite a few players this season for Player of the Year. Who would be yours? You can't say Morales because he doesn't play for us.
Yet. Big word. No, I'm going to say Ricardo Pereira, because the influence he has on that right-hand side in terms of attacking and defending is completely unmatched. There's no right back in the league that sort of gets close to his overall contribution that he has for us. And when he got injured, as well as James Justin did, we lost a lot going forward. I don't mean that in a negative way to James Justin. It's just the level that Ricardo Pereira is. I'd say he's sort of top 3 right backs in the world. So for me, his impact on the team, just the way that his performances and stuff can be so influential. Yes, he might not get the 15 assists Trent gets, but he's as important to us as Trent is to Liverpool.
I'd agree. That's one of the players that we've got down now, as well as one of the players of the year. And also, I agree that the amount of players that we've had that have had decency, that have come out of the team, and that's probably been one of our biggest holes, because, as you were saying, the defensive work that he does, but also the ability to dribble, to get on the inside, to put in a shot, has been fantastic for us. Just over to you, James. Is there anybody else that you'd recommend, or that you'd think would you'd say for Player of the Year today?
Jamie Vardy. Every single year we have this conversation. Is this going to be his last year? Is this the year when he's going to start to fade away? No, this was the year where he got better and better and better. 100 Premier League goals, Golden Boot. Considering what we've been through as a club this year, since January we didn't really turn up. Well, even since after the Norwich game in December, we've just not turned up. So for me, that's phenomenal. So for me, Vardy gets it hands down.
So that's another one that there's been quite a few players that, if you take them out of the team, how well would the team perform? Would they win games? Would they draw games? And I think another player, just kind of to backtrack of what you were saying, obviously Jamie Vardy's in there for us, and Ndidi. So we've seen massively when Ndidi's been dropped from the team, or when we tried to rush him back from injury and he got injured, and our win percentages changed massively. The way that he gets the ball from that CDM position and then distributes it, he's just looking stronger and stronger each match. And at times where teams like Tottenham and Man United can overload us, you've got a player there that go, relax, I've got this, I can sweep it up. Maybe his passing can be a bit improved, but I think he's another player that overall that is in our top 3. I think another player that obviously James Maddison could deserve a few shout outs as well for how he's performed this year, and the impact when he's been removed from the team, how impactful he was. Johnny Evans has been another one I think has been a bit underrated on how he's performed, and obviously he's probably been a big he's probably been a big reason why our defense solidity has been so good. B, why Soyuncu has come on leaps and bounds as well. So there would be my nominations as well. But for the 3 that I have, I think I'm just going to check Twitter now because this is one that we've just put out last. So we're doing this as live as possible. So we're looking at it. So we've got 45 votes for this one. And we have got Ndidi with 11.1%, Pereira with 42.2%, and Jamie Vardy with 46.7%. So I'd agree there, our player of the year, just because of things that were mentioned through this with the 100 goals, with the golden boot. I'd give it to Jamie Vardy as well. So I think that wraps up the end of year awards. So there's been, just to recap, there's been quite a few awards. Most improved player, we've gave it to Soyuncu, Young Footballer of the Year, James Justin, biggest achievement of the year, Jamie Vardy, Golden Boot, underrated player of the year, Kelechi Iheanacho, best assist, James Maddison, the Jamie Vardy goal against Sheffield away, best assister, Harvey Barnes, best team goal would be Arsenal at home, Jamie Vardy, 1-0. A best result of the season, obviously the Southampton 0, Leicester 9. Worst touch of the season, we'll give it to Schmeichel, Bournemouth. A goal of the season, we've given it to Ben Chilwell against Jamie Vardy against Bournemouth. And memory of the season, Kelechi Iheanacho, Everton at home, 90 plus 4 goal. And player of the season, we've given it to Jamie Vardy. So that wraps up this end of year award. So it's been quite a fun one. Is there any other mentions or any other awards that you'd like to see for next time, Alex? Because we've tried to cover as much as we can, but we tried not to make it too labor intensive. But is there any awards we thought about a few of them, like worst shot of the season? I remember Pratt having an absolute howler against Tottenham. Is there any other awards that you could think that potentially that you'd include next season?
You actually you guys had a lot of different choices to, different questions and different awards. So like I said, I think this one I had to think more than I actually thought I had to for most of them. So you could add in, worst shot of the season. That's kind of not an award. That's more of like a demerit. So, but overall, I think, the awards that you've brought up this time around have been great.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I'll hand over back to you, James, because this is my segment of done for the award ceremony.
Okay, that's great. So that concludes the show today. Alex, thanks for joining us again. Hopefully we'll get Zach on again when he's talking about technical problems. And we're back next week. We'll have more transfer rumours, and also the fixtures are out. 21st of August, so we'll do a show around the fixtures, look at the key fixtures, especially Boxing Day, New Year's Day. Last game of the season, and also the Europa draw is October the 4th. So we're looking forward to that. Right, thanks guys, it's been great.
Brilliant. See you later.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for having me.